Hi, I'm Kim Bearden and I'm a librarian for St. Tammany Parish Schools. Today I want to read a very interesting story. It is called Aliens Are Coming. Now, what's funny about this is a true story. A long time ago, in 1898, H.G. Wells wrote the book called The War of the Worlds. Now, Orson Welles wanted to take this and turn it into a theater production. So just as our world was heading to World War II, he decided to go ahead and do this. And he collected all these people to gather all this information, all these things. And they made this play using the War of the Worlds. And on 8 o'clock p.m. on October 30th, 1938, it began. Now, CBS, which is the Columbia Broadcasting System, and its affiliated stations, presented Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. It seemed that many Americans missed this announcement. Many also missed the fact that Wells has set the play in the future and that the war scare was over. The announcer informed listeners that what they were hearing was a play 2 more times in the middle of the broadcast and once at the end. But there were people who didn't hear that in the broadcast, or they turned the radio on and heard what was happening and missed those announcements in some way. I don't know how. However, the next day in the newspapers, it was reported of all the chaos and the hysteria that happened because people believed it was real. So, let's talk about the day that the Americans believed that the aliens are coming. This is written by Meghan McCarthy. It is the true account of the 1938 War of the Worlds radio broadcast. Here are radios from the 1930s. That's what they looked like. They used to sit in living rooms and people would turn them on and listen to different shows, music, as well as the news. Hey kids, did you know that in the 1930s most Americans did not own TVs? But you know what they did have? The radio. Folks tuned in to hear music, plays, and comedy shows. But the radio is more than entertainment. It delivered the latest news from around the world. And because Americans believed what they heard, they were easily fooled by a radio play that sounded like an actual news bulletin. The reaction was astonishing. Here is that story. It was October 30th, 1938, the day before Halloween. Broadcasting on the radio that evening were Ramon Raquello and his orchestra playing a tango. Suddenly, the music stopped. Announcer: Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions on the planet Mars. Announcer: Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m. a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Phillips: This is Carl Phillips, out at the Walnut Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Well, I hardly know where to begin. The object doesn't look very much like a meteor, at least not the meteors I've seen. Just a minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. Voices: She's moving. Look, the darn thing's unscrewing. Phillips: Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Something's crawling out of the hollow top. Something or someone or... Are they eyes? Good heavens! Something's wriggling out of the shadows. Now it's another one. And another. They look like tentacles to me, but that face! I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. Wait! Something's happening! Phillips. A hump shape is rising out of the pit. Now the whole field's caught fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of automobiles. It's spreading everywhere. Announcer. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are invading army from the planet Mars. Announcer. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Streets are all jammed, noise and crowds like New Year's Eve in city. Enemy now in sight. Announcer. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside Buffalo, one in Chicago, one in St. Louis. Now they're lifting their middle hands. This is the end now. Was this the end of the world? Radio listeners across the country were in a state of panic. Operators were flooded with phone calls about the broadcast. Princeton professors looked for rocks from outer space. Cars full of frantic drivers dodged the highways. One man thought he saw a Martian spaceship. But what is it? It's a water tower, right? Police arrived at a farm in Grover's Mill only to find an empty field. So this is what was really happening. Meanwhile, the actors from the Mercury Theater on CBS Radio continued with their radio show, unaware of the terror that they caused outside their door. The alien invasion was just a story. Using actors and sound effects, Orson Welles, the soon-to-be famous director and actor, had created an all-too-realistic version of the popular science fiction novel The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. If your doorbell rings and nobody's there, Wells said at the end of the broadcast, that was no Martian. It's Halloween. That's the end of the story. But at the end of the book, you'll find an author's note that explains about all the reasons why this even happened, what he was trying to do with his broadcast, and how it accidentally made all this chaos. It was a really interesting story. And then at the end, they also teach you how to draw, and they have other information about H.G. Wells, as well as a bibliography. Another thing to look into, if you like going on YouTube, go on YouTube and see if you can find the actual footage of the radio broadcast from Orson Welles when he was on CBS Radio with the War of the Worlds. So it's really interesting to hear because it's the actual footage. It's a primary source in which you hear all the actors and all the sound effects the way they originally happened. Well, I hope you enjoyed The Aliens Are Coming. And until next time, keep learning and keep reading. Burroughs says, keep learning and keep reading. Right, Burrow?